Reddit, who is the most annoying celebrity? Steven Seagal is an absolute knob. My favorite story about him is one told by Artie Lang. A friend of his was on set and he ran into Steven Seagal, and so he tries to make small talk. Steven Seagal tells him, "I just read the greatest script ever written." The buddy asks him, "Awesome, who wrote it?" Steven Seagal says, "I did." Jake Paul and his brother. I want to see them fight real competition and get knocked TF out. That happened to Jake that single time he tried to fight Tommy Fury. Not knocked out, but he still lost, which is just as good to me. Now he refuses to fight anyone aside from old men that are either fully retired or haven't been actively competing for multiple years. Conor McGregor. Being found liable for rape is only part of it. He's well known in Ireland for being a thug. There's footage of him sucker punching a man in a bar for not wanting to try his brand of whiskey. He uses his status and physical strength to bully people. I genuinely wish him the worst in life. J-Lo. It still amazes me that she gets work. More than 70% of her movies have under 50% rating. Can you imagine failing that hard, that often, and still keeping your job? And she's very pretentious about it and critical of every other actress in the world. Cameron Diaz is a lucky model who gets good roles and doesn't do anything with them. Winona Ryder is overrated and no one actually likes her. Jodie Foster is a has-been, Halle Berry is coasting on her looks, Nicole Kidman is only famous because of Tom Cruise, Natalie Portman was a cute kid, but it's gotten old seeing her. And she sees it as her duty to criticize them because acting is my craft. I think I'm more annoyed by people who are obsessed with celebrities than with the actual celebrities themselves. Very good point, I agree. To be fair, if idiots want to drool over you and buy your stupid products, why not take advantage of those fools? Jared Leto. My current professor used to be the equipment room manager at the college he went to. Apparently, he is the most conceited, self-righteous prick ever. He'd always return equipment weeks late, and if anyone called him out on it, he'd get all pissy and go on about how big of a star he would be one day, and how you're nobody compared to him. My professor was so happy that his Joker in Suicide Squad bombed. Donald Trump, because he's the only one I hear about all the fucking time. Other ones are easy enough to ignore completely. I mean, it's kind of hard to ignore Sonewan in a position of power, but yeah, he's annoying as shit. Andrew Tate. His views and on women astound me that a person is able to think like a rock. The thing I find the most hilarious is, for calling himself such an alpha, he's the most fragile and scared man I've ever seen record himself. He literally breaks down at the slightest deflection from his overly forced perspective. He's literally the epitome of trying too hard. How guys gobble his shit up is beyond me. It amazes me that snowflakes like him gain so much clout with guys that seem to care about ego so much. It's as if those screaming about free thinking are weirdly so willing to praise a douchebag who would be scared of his own shadow if it looked like it might be wearing a skirt. Salt Bae is slowly making his way to most. Man, the whole Salt Bae thing at the World Cup was such a cringe fest. Dude just barges onto the pitch like he's part of the team or something, grabbing the trophy and pestering Messi for a pic. Like, bro, read the room. This is their moment, not your Instagram highlight reel. The fact that FIFA even let him get that far is wild. Pretty sure touching the World Cup is a big no-no unless you're a champ or a VIP, but here we are. Honestly, the whole thing just felt so disrespectful to the players and the fans. Chris Brown? Where do I even start? The guy's talent is undeniable, but it's so hard to separate the art from the person when his track record is just full of red flags. The incident with Rihanna should have been enough for people to hold him accountable, but nope. He's still out here topping charts and getting passes left and right. And let's not forget the other allegations and temper tantrums over the years. At some point, being talented shouldn't outweigh being a decent human being. James Corden. The guy somehow managed to turn being overly loud and obnoxious into a career, but the charm wore off fast. Sure, carpool karaoke was fun at first, but now it just feels like he's clinging to it because it's the only thing people still tolerate. Every skit he's in is just him trying way too hard to be the center of attention, even when it's not about him. And let's not forget the stories about how he treats people behind the scenes. From being rude to waitstaff to allegedly being a nightmare to work with. It's clear the whole nice guy act is just that, an act. the entitlement and arrogance he's been accused of really sour whatever likability he might have had on camera. It's like he's always trying to be the funny guy, but instead, it comes off as forced and overbearing. And don't even get me started on his movie appearances. He somehow manages to make every character feel like just another version of himself. Honestly, it's exhausting. There are so many genuinely funny and talented people out there who could bring so much more to the table without the cringe and ego. I know nothing about all the rumors and stories about him being an asshole. Even if I did, how would I know if they're true? But I still hate the guy simply because he's obnoxious. But I guess that's his whole shtick. My dad, who is in his 70s, thinks he's funny. I do not get it. I find him uncomfortable to watch, which is the opposite of what a late-night host should be. Any of the Kardashians? Exactly. Watching Kendall Jenner struggle to cut a cucumber was just painful. It's not quirky, it's straight-up privileged ignorance. Like, how disconnected from real life do you have to be to not know how to handle something so basic? And then there's her mom swooping in like, "Oh, we'll get the chef to do it." Seriously? That's not a flex. It's just embarrassing. It's moments like these that make it so clear how out of touch the Kardashians are. They live in this bubble where they don't have to deal with normal, everyday tasks, and instead of acknowledging it, they play it off as cute or relatable. Spoiler alert, it's not. And don't even get me started on how this behavior is glorified. There are people struggling to put food on the table, and here's Kendall making headlines for not knowing how to slice a cucumber. It's a perfect snapshot of how absurdly skewed priorities can get in celebrity culture. That video is truly insane, and I hope for her sake staged. Even if you've never cut a cucumber before, I don't get how you'd think doing it like that could be correct. Ellen DeGeneres. What a fall from grace. She built her whole brand on be kind. But turns out, behind the scenes, it was the complete opposite. Hearing all those stories from staff about how toxic the work environment was. Yikes. The favoritism, the microaggressions, and the straight-up bullying? Not exactly the vibe she was selling to the world. And let's not forget how fake her whole on-screen persona feels now. Every time she cracks a joke or pretends to be interested in her guests, it's hard not to wonder if it's all just an act. The worst part? She never really took accountability for any of it. The apology was weak at best, more about saving face than genuinely addressing the harm. It's honestly so disappointing. For someone who preached kindness and positivity for years, the hypocrisy is just too much to ignore. Makes you wonder how many other nice celebs are hiding the same kind of behavior. Drake. Been saying this since his early days? It's not even deep, his music is fucking awful. Started from the Bottom has got to be one of the worst hip-hop songs ever. Yeah, Drake's music is so overhyped. Started from the Bottom is the perfect example. It's just lazy writing over a decent beat. People act like he's some lyrical genius, but most of his tracks are surface level and repetitive. Honestly, he's been coasting on vibes more than substance for years. Machine Gun Kelly. He tries so hard to be edgy and different, but it comes off as painfully forced. From the cringy, over-the-top PDA with Megan Fox to his constant need to remind everyone how rockstar he is now, it's like he's stuck in a never-ending midlife crisis, except he's not even that old. And don't even get me started on his music. The transition from rap to pop-punk? Fine, artists evolve, but acting like he reinvented the genre when he's just recycling what bands did better in the early 2000s? Please, it's more gimmick than genuine. Then there's the attitude, the constant feuds, the obnoxious interviews, and his desperate attempts to stay in the spotlight by saying or doing something controversial. It's also tiring. At some point, you've got to wonder if there's anything authentic about him, or if it's all just one big, messy performance. Listening to Killshot again, thanks. Rap God, Rap Devil, then Killshot. It's like a bedtime story. I listen to all three from time to time. It's always good to hear MGK get murdered twice. I'll give him credit though, he tried to diss M. But that's just not how the universe works. Mr. Beast. Every picture of him I see helps me understand the difference between smiling and showing people your teeth. It's like he's mastered the art of looking polite without actually feeling it. Just pure, empty energy. Thanks for watching. Subscribe.